You're watching The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DEJ MV Angela Yee, Charlamagne the God. We are The Breakfast Club. We have a special guest in the building. She's a huge Trump supporter.
Don't play with her like that. Don't play with her like that. Don't play with her like that.
We have Miss Angela Rye. Good morning.
Good morning. You trying to have me jump across this table already?
Tell everybody who Angela Rye is, for those that don't know.
I am Eddie Rye's daughter. I happen to be a political commentator on CNN and also NPR political analyst, a political advocacy firm in D.C. So in short, I love all things politics and have the great opportunity to run my mouth about those things every now and then.
And you have a platform as a woke woman.
I think so.
Right.
I think so. We definitely can't sleep now, especially as we get a little closer to January 20th. There's a lot on the line, so for sure.
And Envy couldn't be more wrong. You actually cried when Donald Trump became president-elect.
I laid on the floor in my room and cried, and then woke up the next morning and was like, "This can't be life,"
Did you
and cried some more.
Imagine though what went wrong?
So many things I think went wrong. I think that we were. I was saying at first I was like, "Do you think we got hacked?" And then when I kind of realized what happened, I was like, "Oh, we got hacked by white people." Like white men and white women who overwhelmingly turned their back on one of their own. What I can say is I was really frustrated by the narrative that black and brown people in some way were to blame for this election. Black and brown people turned out on par with everyone else. So it wasn't on us. I think the bigger issue is the Republican Party for years has been building this narrative that the white working class is some way different than black and brown and Asian working class folks. And the differences aren't really there. We haven't done a good job of connecting the dots and telling people that we're more similar than we are different.
Absolutely. Poor is poor.
That's right.
Period.
If you don't have a dollar, you don't have a dollar.
That's it.
So,
And for some reason, people seem to think that underneath Barack Obama's presidency, we actually suffered a lot more when that's not really the case.
no, it's not the case. I think that folks suffered again, right, when they saw this black man walk into the White House in 2008 and then win again in 2012. I can't help but to think about the moment during the State of the Union address where, they started clapping in the middle of a point he was raising about winning, and he talked about the election. He was like, "I know because I won both of them," and just shut them down.
That's right.
On the House floor. And so I think the reality of it is, much to their chagrin, he won twice.
Now, what do we do moving forward? Because obviously now inauguration's coming up on the 20th. And everybody's like, okay, it's over for us. But we have to still move forward and do what we have to do.
We got 4 years.
What would you say are some things that we have to do? And do you think he'll even make it the 4 years as far as not getting impeached or anything?
I'm sorry to smirk when you ask me if I think he'll get impeached. I
You
certainly
want him
hope
to get
so.
impeached. Yeah.
I mean,
You
to
hope
me,
so.
it's so alarming that this man, with all the conflicts of interest he has, with his, immature rants on Twitter, it's amazing to me that he's been able to get this far. Can you imagine if Barack Hussein Obama tried to do any of the things in 140 characters that this guy's done? I don't know. But what I will tell you is this. We have overcome so much more in this country than just losing to someone who is a bigot. For decades, for centuries, that has been our reality. And so what we do know...
We've been fighting against bigotry and hatred our whole existence as black people in America.
Absolutely. And so we know that we are a resilient people. And when times get tough, we rise to the occasion. So I'm not at all concerned about our ability to withstand this. We've, withstood so much more. And I continue to just think about the fact that in a little bit, at least, it looks like I'm going to have Harriet Tubman on a $20 bill. So I'm going to write on that.
So what brought out the emotions then? What brought out the tears that, oh, my God, like what brought that out?
I think
we all felt like
disbelief.
crying.
Disbelief. There was this man who really was the echo chamber and the chief spokesman for the birther movement. For the person saying that our president wasn't a U.S. citizen because he was other, right? Because he was black. Won. So the very antithesis of everything that we stood for with hope and change, just it was like our dreams snatched. Not dreams deferred, but totally removed, stripped, and stolen from us.
It also made me disappointed in who are these people that live in the United States among us?
Absolutely. 46 million of them and counting, at that time and counting. So to me, I'm going, walking down the street like, did you vote for Trump? You know, I'm like trying to figure out who
But if
did
you
it.
live, like I grew up in South Carolina, like I grew up in a rural area.
Yeah.
You know those people exist. They were just waiting for a champion. They were waiting for somebody to come and be their voice.
Not even that, where you live now. All you see is Trump signs, all in the neighborhood.
Yeah, but that's a little different in Jersey. That's richness.
And I think the challenge with that is I grew up in Seattle, Washington.
Yeah.
And so you would think that because it's crunchy granola progressive, no, there are white folks in Washington State that also voted for Donald Trump. That is also scary to me because I'm used to covert racism. I wasn't used to dealing with overt racism, and I didn't think I would be dealing with it as much in 2016. I think that we were all, really disheartened by the amount of police violence that we saw on our folks over the last few years. But then to see it kind of just get endorsed and smacked into the White House in 2016, I think was a little much for me.
I'm glad you said that because a lot of people act crazy when I say, and I'm from the South, I've never experienced overt racism. I'm sure I've experienced covertly, but I've never experienced it overtly.
Well, and I wouldn't say that I never have. I didn't expect to experience it in that way where it could go and live at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. This is the guy, we talked about it all the time on air, who called for the death penalty of the Central Park Five. And that is just an example that we saw, the most visible example of black and brown boys being targeted for something they didn't do. And so to me, that is alarming. It wasn't when he called out Barack Obama. He's been a bigot his entire adult life, and to me, we've seen examples of that again over and over and over again. And I wouldn't go as far as to say I didn't experience overt racism. But I experienced covert far more in the Pacific Northwest.
Well, just to play white devil's advocate, even with the Central Park 5 thing, because this was on yesterday on Fox. They was having this whole conversation about the Make America, it was on O'Reilly Factor, the Make America Great Again slogan, and they was having this whole discussion about racism and what is racism. Do you think that he called for the Central Park 5's execution because they were black and brown or just because he felt like they were rapists?
I think that when you are black and brown in this country, whether it's in 2016 or it was in the 80s or the early 90s, you are deemed inherently violent and criminal.
Right. You're presumed guilty already.
Absolutely. And whether it was racist intent or racist impact, it doesn't matter. The impact is the same, right? And so I'm not saying that Donald Trump was like, oh, because they're black and brown, they automatically did it. I'm saying that implicit bias, which Hillary Clinton was bashed for bringing up in a debate, is real. And that's something that he's never had to deal with because he could pay it off, whether we're talking about the Department of Justice settlements with the housing discrimination issues or whatever. He's always had this issue. Look at his Snow White cabinet plus Ben Carson, whose only qualification for running HUD is going to be that he lived in public housing. I mean, that's kind of bigoted. The fact that he could say that we walk down the street and try to go buy a loaf of bread and get shot in our neighborhoods, I don't know where he thinks I live. That's not my reality. And
a little bit off.
Just a little bit. But it has to do with feeding into bias that exists and that is violent for us. That results in violence on us.
Do you think all Trump supporters are racist?
I don't. I think that there are some that have deeply held bigoted beliefs and prejudice. I think that there are some who are very clearly racist. There were some KKK folks that, had a march that, a couple of days after.
Thank God that show got shut down.
There's some people who also feel like because they're entrepreneurs and because there's people that feel like, well, as a business person and somebody who's wealthy, I'm voting for Donald Trump because I do know a couple of people who
cut taxes.
Right, that feel like, well, this is going to be good for me financially.
And I would encourage them to see what happens if they tried to do business with Donald Trump. There are a lot of small business owners who went bankrupt doing business with Donald Trump because he said, well, I was going to pay you, but I didn't like what you did. But after they did the work.
That's why I never understood why he got such support from the little fish when he was one of those big fish that would eat the little fish up all the time.
It's the most surprising thing. I'm still in shock. I told somebody, I said, I'm in one of the stages of grief. I don't know which one. I'm just lost in it. Still trying to figure it out, but I know that we will.
We're talking to Angela Rye. Now, what did you think of Barack Obama? He's about to leave office. He's been there 8 years. A lot of African-American black people think he didn't really ride with them.
Well, and I would love to know why they think that. What I can say to you is I do believe that it would have been really tough for him to be a Black Panther in the White House, even if
I think people expected that. I think people, when all the shootings were happening, he should have stood on the front lines. I think people
wanted him to do something directly for black people.
Absolutely.
But he did.
I was going to say,
he did My Brother's Keeper program, I think. Didn't he start that?
My Brother's Keeper is definitely an initiative that came out of the White House, but I would say one of the things that I'm most proud of is actually something that came out of the Congressional Black Caucus where I used to work. Those members pushed for offices of minority and women inclusion in federal government agencies, every single one that had a financial services agency component. And they walked out of a markup, which is where you kind of amend legislation to push for this thing. Barack Obama signed that bill into law, and that ensures that there are diverse representatives when you're talking about asset managers doing business with the federal government. That will change the face of that long term. So there are a lot of nuanced things that he's done, I think in partnership with the CBC and on his own, but I think that only time will tell. I did not like when he said, that when he said, a rising tide lifts all boats, because we don't always have a boat, you know? So I think that kind of narrative is not as safe, but I think we'll see a lot of what he did for us on the back end and maybe not on the media.
And I think it was very difficult for him to do a lot of things because he got so much resistance from people that are supposed to be working in the White House with him. Everybody, so many people were against him, the Republicans. They kind of had his hands tied a lot, I felt like.
Well, and I think Republican obstruction, it was real on the House side and the Senate side. As soon as the Democrats lost control of the House and the Senate, of course, they're no longer in the majority. They made it their mission. Mitch McConnell, in fact, who's our Senate majority leader, said he was going to make Barack Obama a one-term president. That was his mission. So when you have that kind of, you're not thinking about what's best for the American people. You're thinking about how to make him ineffective. And that's on us. We feel that pain, not just the president.
Speaking of what's best for the American people, do you think the Electoral College has too much power?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I think that if more of our folks knew the root of the Electoral College, the history, the fact that it came about to protect the interest.
Explain to what Electoral College is to people, because a lot of people, I'm sure, don't know. They just feel like they voted.
And my vote counts, and whoever gets the most votes is president.
Just explain to the people what it is.
Sure. And I'll give you I think the elevator pitch version, which is the Electoral College is a slap in the face to the concept of one person, one vote. What happens is if a presidential candidate wins a state, in most states, there are only 2 where this doesn't happen, they take all the votes in the Electoral College. It's a representative sample of a demographic in the state. So votes are assigned based on the number of people in the state's population.
Right.
With the Electoral College, it was put in place literally to protect the interests of slave states. We at the time were counted, we black people were counted as 3/5 of a person, and the master, the slave master, got say over that vote. That is not anything that's in our interest. And I think that it's time in 2016 for this country to realize that there are things in our foundation that are wrong. And when your foundation is off, you have to repair it. Right. That is not okay. We have to deal with that. And it's not just about Hillary Clinton winning the popular vote by almost 3 million votes, which she did. This is about what it means to live in a democracy, and we have to challenge that.
Yeah, when you talk about a country, people like to say America's rooted in racism. No, it was built
Absolutely.
on racism.
And when people say there's no racism, we need to get over it. We need to just stop worrying about that and bringing it up. There's still a lot of things in place that hold us back.
100%. And when you're talking about, okay, well, let's just start from now. We can't start from now because we're starting at a deficit. If if slave labor built companies, there's an article that came out that talked about the ways in which Fortune 500 companies nowadays were built upon slave labor, and they're still progressing. They're still building. So if they were able to have this huge advantage from slave labor, there should be some type of restitution for what we did not get. We're starting at a deficit. We're starting at a deficit.
You think reparations could make a real difference?
Absolutely.
If they teach people what to do with the money.
I don't think that it has to be like we get a blank check or like we just bought a Cadillac. I don't think it has to be that kind of a thing. I think that it could be programs, economic development in communities. I think there are all types of ways to determine what a reparations-like program would be, but an apology is not sufficient.
Yeah, make us exempt from taxes for a few years. I'd love that.
Now, in the news today, people were upset about Talladega College, and they were talking about the band from there going to perform at the inauguration. They were invited, and I don't know if they accepted or what's going on with that. What do you think about people? Because I assume if you're going to perform at inauguration, that means that you're supporting Donald Trump. But what do you think about people saying they would go, or people going to inauguration and performing?
Well, I think I agree with you in some ways. I think that there are some folks who are now saying, well, at this point, we need to just figure out how to move the country forward. And in order to do that, we need to unite. I am of the school of thought that says uniting means that I'm looking past all of the things that he did to harm us, not only during the election, but throughout his career, as well as the folks that he's working with. or trying to put in his cabinet, like Jeff Sessions, who is the Attorney General nominee. Jeff Sessions, who is opposed to criminal justice reform while he was in the Senate. He's still in the Senate technically. Jeff Sessions, who was calling a black man boy, who was an attorney on his staff when he was a U.S. attorney in Alabama. So I agree with you that, at some point you can't continue to let these things stand without pushing back. There's a woman who who said that she would perform. I can't think of the name of the singer, but she said if she could sing "Strange Fruit."
I saw that yesterday. Was it Rebecca Ferguson?
I don't remember her name. I honestly, I had never heard of her. Maybe that's really bad. But, but I appreciate the fact that she said that. I think it speaks volumes. So
now let's switch gears. You had a traumatizing experience recently with the TSA. Could you tell people what happened with that? You got groped, basically.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was
painful to watch.
It was
I'm
painful
not
to
gonna lie.
experience.
Okay, I'll let you finish.
It was painful to experience. For me, I fly multiple times a week. And I paid for pre-check and I paid for clear. Both of these, things.
I went both of those too.
Went through pre-check and I was flagged for additional screening, which is annoying, but it's whatever, right? I had on
Every 10 people they do that.
Well, I mean, and it was like me left in the Detroit airport leaving a speaking engagement. So I'm going through, I get flagged and I'm like, whatever, this is ridiculous. And you guys, I look like a bag lady. I had on sparkly Uggs boots and a
We seen you.
DVF wrap dress. You couldn't see the boots though in the video. But a DVF wrap dress, which at least most women know, is a clingy. It's a clingy dress. It's not like you
can't really hide much.
You can't hide anything. And so I go through. And
he might have stopped you on purpose then.
Maybe, but I worked on the Committee on Homeland Security, which is a U.S. House of Representatives, a congressional entity charged with overseeing all of the Homeland Security Department, including TSA. I give you that for a reason. Go through the machine. There are boxes where it's flagged from doing after you get screened, you have to go through the secondary screening. There are 3 boxes overlaid on my vagina on this thing. So I say, you're not about to pat down my vagina. Like, that's just not going to happen. And they're like, well, you have to. I was like, you need to get your supervisor because this is not happening. Right. So they get the supervisor.
That was the older white lady that came out. Was that the supervisor?
No, she was the original TSO or Transportation Security Officer.
Okay.
The supervisor comes out. I go back and forth with him. He then calls his manager, who is irate that he even had to be called, tells me that I can either go through with the screening or get escorted out by the police. So the police officers, he does not listen anymore. The police officer's coming to basically escort me out. I was like, let me explain to you what's going on. I have to go to New York. I have 3 meetings in the morning. I can't miss my flight. So I'm trying to tell him what happens. He was like, well, I just got my butt patted down last week. It's not going to be that bad. So she tells me she's going to backhand pat my front ear. And I'm like, whatever, just do it. What she does not tell me is she's going to go up between my legs all the way up. Like, all the way up. So in the video, you see me, like, jump. Because I was, like, surprised. I was annoyed about the other piece, but I was like, whatever, I'm going to record it. It'll be fine. I'm going to send it to my friends at Homeland Security and just tell them they need to work this out. I did not expect for that to happen. And then she went up the back, up my dress all the way up. And at that point, I was in tears because I was humiliated. 1, I didn't know that was going to happen. 2, I was just like, does this really happen to people? And then 3, my mind immediately went to, I've never been sexually assaulted. I cannot imagine what a person, man or woman, would go through if they had been, and that's like a triggering event for them. So I just turned it into, okay, I'm sitting, as soon as I got done, I'm on the phone with my friend who works on the committee still. I'm like, I'm about to send you this video. This is what happened. I'm crying. She was like, oh my God. So I sent it to her, and things are moving. I was going to say short version. This is far from the short version now, but.
Have you heard from TSA?
I was just getting ready to say, so there is supposed to be a meeting scheduled with the administrator and the deputy administrator. And my intent is to tell them I want to periscope this for everybody who's reached out to you all, filed an official complaint, and never heard anything. I have received, I can't tell you all, I get emails every day still of people who've had incidents like this happen. We don't need that. We're not finding anything. They actually put out a statement saying, well, around the same time, several years ago, the underwear bomber. You know damn well I don't have an underwear bomb on. You know what I mean? And then there was other women that were like, well, if you have on Depends or a tampon and I was like, it's not that time of the month and I don't wear Depends.
Right.
You know, like you need to figure out another way. I'm sorry, but it's TMI to get your vagina. I don't know. I think that if you
depends if you have like leakage or something, like if you're bowels.
By the way, it's very uncomfortable for men to go through that too, and it's so funny because we was making jokes about it for like 2 weeks because we was flying a lot and we'd go through. And it's always the one guy who'd be like, we could do this here or do it in private.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going in private.
That's
you can
what I told them. I was
fondle
like,
me.
there's no way. I'm going in the back with y'all.
See, I fly probably similar to you, 2-3 times a week. And that happens all the time. Like you're the 10th person.
And he likes to sag his pants though. So
no, it's not that. What happens is you usually wear a belt or whatever your belt is or your pants with a zip. The buttons usually ring off, so they have to do that. So when I seen it, my first reaction was like, this happens all the time to me.
Yeah.
Like all the time.
Yeah.
And they always tell you, I have to pat your front. I'm gonna use the back of my hands. And they tell you, and usually they're so respectful. I'm like, I just gotta catch my flight. I thought it was normal.
Did you see them go up? Do they
I
ever
saw
grab
that
your
was
nuts? Because I
crazy.
think that's the equivalent. No, I'm serious. Like, do they? No,
have
because
they ever grabbed your nuts?
that's
in?
the equivalent. Like, that's the equivalent. As vulgar as that is, I just feel like I have to
I don't
be.
like the buttocks patting.
I don't like
and
any of
that's
it.
very sensual.
Oh, with the
to
back
build
of
your
the
hands
hands?
like this.
But to think about all the people that this happens to that
All the
no
time.
one
that
will
don't
never,
have a
ever,
platform
right.
or haven't had anyone listen to them, or the woman who emailed me just yesterday saying that she just broke down and cried from watching my video because it triggered sexual assault memories for her.
Damn.
But I
Like,
did get into a
it's-
bunch of incidents. When,
yeah.
like if you go to certain clubs, and usually they do the same thing in the clubs. They try to go up your leg. And I've gotten into certain incidents when a security guard tried to go up my crotch.
It's too
I'm like,
much.
F this. I don't need to come in this club.
Yeah.
I got my money already. I'm out. But it does
And usually
happen.
Envy's the guy they give the gun to walk in the club because they know he's not gonna get searched.
Snitch. And that's a long time ago. That was 20 years ago.
See?
But anyway. But I
You're
felt
not
your
making this any
pain. So
better.
now-
TMI.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're
TMI.
not making this any better.
Getting
So
back.
now what's next as far as TSA and what they can do? Because it is disrespectful.
So my thing now is I think that it's time for them to spend a little bit more money on R&D or research and development to find technology that actually works. I know so many people who can go through with more than 3 ounces of liquid, who can, pack all kind of stuff in their bags. They had a 95% failure rate when there were discrete searches, or I'm sorry, like they were doing, why can't I think of the name of the term now? They basically were covert testing is
Planting
what
the
it's
stuff in
called.
people's bags.
They were no
Right.
covert testing means they have people who are pre-identified to put a fake weapon on their back or whatever, and they got through.
Right.
And so part of the reason is your backhand pat down doesn't work, this doesn't work, your groping doesn't work, and your screening machines or your folks who are screening, it doesn't work.
But if your vagina was ringing off.
It wasn't.
No, it was a random check.
Oh, it was random.
It was
check,
a
okay.
random check, so I
So
got
the dots weren't on your vagina.
the
Could you
boxes.
stop talking about her vagina in this manner? Like, Jesus Christ.
It's fine.
No, I'm
but there
asking.
were overlaid boxes. I don't know what they were checking for. There was
Right.
nothing. It was my underwear and my dress. So my only point is, if it's triggering false alarms, the technology is
It's wrong,
broken.
right.
Put funding in there so we can actually stop terrorists instead of just grabbing folks by their private parts.
Right.
Maybe your vagina's special.
We just stop talking about her
Now,
vagina.
listen, are you and Katrina Pearson cool?
No.
Because
That was
I
quick.
saw you get at her when she attacked you over your Congressional Black Caucus record. You really don't like her?
She's really legitimately nuts.
She is, but it's just
And
funny.
you know
because
what? I can't wait to see where Trump is going to put her in the White House. Probably
nowhere.
Exactly. So it's just, you did all of that. You sold your people out. You were the spook at the door. And
She really wasn't, though.
I'm sorry?
Because the spook at the door was there for actual purposes of sitting there and getting the information and bringing it back to the hood and the community. I don't think she does that at all.
No. Spook at the door the opposite way. Like spook at the door like Uncle Tom's Cabin. Like,
Oh, okay. Well,
you ain't
that's
about
a
that
little
life.
different. All right,
Like, you
okay.
going to go out and be Donald Trump's attacks dog
Got you.
against black people, making up stuff regularly on air. And she gonna be the only liar in Trump's whole orbit that doesn't get placed anywhere.
Yeah, so she was more just the Uncle Tom. Spook,
Okay.
Spook was sat by the door was a good thing.
Well, in this instance, this
Yeah.
was the spook that. Well, maybe she was outside on the other side of the door. Maybe she was the spook at the bush. But she, let me tell you,
So how do you handle dealing with your colleagues that have a completely opposite point of view than you? Because I see y'all on CNN and it does get heated, and I wonder, do y'all have these conversations and then go get
You
lunch
can be,
afterwards?
but she's very
or-
respectful. But I think the problem is when somebody just makes things up and attacks you personally.
that's exactly right. So for me, the main thing is, and you will appreciate this. Our name means bringer of truth or messenger of God. And I don't always bring Jesus' message, but I definitely try to tell the truth. And it's so important to me that at least if we're engaged in debate or in discussion, that you rely on facts. So when you don't, I kind of lose it. Like, I'll flip out.
So you flipped out a lot during
I have
this
flipped out a lot,
presidential cycle.
whether
Yeah.
it's a face or like, what are you talking about? Or there's one segment where I was like so mad. I was like, are you effing kidding me? I didn't say the word, but that's literally what I said.
You
I was
argue
like,
with your man
that
a
was
lot
nuts.
about facts if you have a man, because my wife is about facts. And when I try to throw in some curveball facts that don't make sense, that's what
You do
really
that all
gets
the
her going.
time,
But
yeah.
I do that all the time.
But that's the thing. So there are folks on air who are Trump supporters and we're colleagues at CNN or whatever, and we get along fine off air. But we definitely have had to have some come to Jesus moments too, where it's like,
Come to Jesus.
listen, you can't, do this, or this really offended me when you said this, or can you apologize for saying I lied about this when you know I did, or whatever. We've had those conversations too. But part of it is just like what you all have to do every day when you go to work or when you interact with folks who you don't agree with. You find the commonality in the human being first. Right? And then I think you go from there. But if you start off with politics, you won't agree with with a whole lot of people.
I
Do you
think it's
think-
fine to argue with people and have different points of views, and maybe sometimes you'll be like, okay, I understand what you're saying, but it's just bad when people are saying things personally about you that
That's
just
right.
are incorrect.
I think
Politics, religion, and who's the greatest MC, Biggie or Tupac, should never be discussed too much.
I don't agree with that. I mean, this is like what I live for. I think it's really, really it's important to me, and I think that it's very important that we are representing the views of people who are at home watching. So I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think it is bad when you get personal and you get disrespectful.
Let's
It's
talk
just-
Tommy Lauren for a little bit.
Oh, here we go.
Why
Why we got to use her time to talk about Tommy Lauren?
I have a question for you. Tommy Lauren,
Why?
Charlamagne. There was pictures of Charlamagne and Tommy Lauren. Out. Black Twitter, the black community killed Charlamagne for it.
Yes, they did.
What
I
did
saw
you
that.
think about
And your
it?
name actually came up in that discussion.
That's how
Yeah.
I mean, I was familiar with Angela Rye, but like they really started talking about you a lot when I was talking about woke women with platforms.
What did you think about Charlamagne taking pictures with her and talking to her outside of the platforms?
I don't think there's anything wrong with, again, I just said this, having conversations with people with different views. How are we ever going to get to a point where we find common ground or we move forward if we don't have conversations? I don't understand that. I will say I understood the criticism of folks who got upset with you saying, where are the woke women with these platforms? I did not take your point that way, and I said that on Twitter. I thought that the point was not that they don't have platforms or there's not anybody. It's that we have not elevated folks and supported them. So I think that's the bigger point. There may be, contingents of folks who have supported folks in some ways, but it's not enough to be at Tommy Lauren's level.
So in other words, there are these women out here, but where are the people that are supporting these women is more of a point.
Yeah, I think that if we're
And
going
elevating these women to have these platforms.
I thought that was your point. I won't speak for
That's
you.
exactly was my point. And I feel like we empowered Tommy with hate because we consistently talk about Tommy in a negative way. So why not consistently talk about one of our people in a positive way? And whether we like it or not, she's going to be a voice for the young conservatives for at least the next 4 years.
I
So
wasn't familiar with her. I got more familiar with her after what you said and then after Trevor Noah's interview
Right,
with
so-
her. I had no idea who she was, but
Exactly.
people were always in my mentions like, I want to see Tommy and Angela debate. I was like, who is that? I don't know who that is.
I didn't know about it till Twitter.
But
because-
that's why we need to, because if we were watching this stuff, we would have known these folks were coming for us.
Absolutely.
Like, we should pay attention to someone.
But I also
Absolutely.
feel like, and the only issue, like I told Charlamagne I had was, I wouldn't post a picture joking around with her like that. It was a very serious issues, and things that she says are disgusting to a lot of people.
All we did was take a picture. I put a picture together and I put it in black and white and I put do you see color? Because that's what she said on Trevor Noah's show. I thought that was clever, honestly.
And then it was like a LOL.
I did. I put the laughing
Well, Angela,
emoji.
you
Yeah,
need to
I
come
didn't
by
think that
more.
was
Oh no, I got more questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I want to talk about Senator Chuck Schumer. He said America can't afford to have a Twitter presidency. What do you think about that?
Well, congratulations, Chuck Schumer. We have one. I mean, it's too late for that. So if America couldn't afford that, America should have voted in I'll call them the slave states, where, that's what we have. We have someone who's not only a Twitter president, but someone who regularly has typos in 140 characters.
You think his Twitter fingers could cause something like
Twitter fingers.
really, really crazy to happen?
Yes,
in the United States?
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Because people are really paying. It's like he's like a Twitter beefer.
He is.
If
And
somebody
that could
hacks
really
Donald
cause a
Trump's Twitter,
war.
imagine somebody hacks Donald Trump's Twitter and says nuclear bombing, 4 p.m., New York City.
You don't have to have anybody hack his Twitter. He hacks
might
his
say
Twitter
it.
every day.
Himself.
Like, that's him. Like he's regularly issuing threats. He's regularly saying things that aren't true. He's tweeting about Julian Assange saying that a 14-year-old could have hacked John Podesta. He's using that more as a fact instead of the intelligence agencies in this country. I mean, he's undermining not only the presidency, but he's undermining our entire government. And whether you like every agency in the government or not, that is not helpful for our national security purposes. It's borderline treasonous. So yeah, we welcome to the Twitter presidency. I feel so bad for Jack and Twitter because it's giving Twitter a bad rap.
I really think it's going to be some Orson Welles War of the Worlds type stuff that happens during this presidency.
I hope not.
Now, he also tried to address Chicago and all the issues in Chicago.
Did he?
Well, not really. He didn't give any solutions.
He said it's crazy out there,
He
Scott.
said the federal government should step in.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I had no problem with that.
But step in and do what?
I don't know. National Guard, something.
The National Guard in Chicago, you think that will help?
Maybe. Why not?
I don't think that would make
760 people got killed last year.
I'm not condoning the violence in Chicago at all. But what I will say is I have a really good friend who told me about this platform where there's data on basically all of the violence that happens in Chicago, the number of people who are engaged in it, and they can narrow it down. They have data that does that. I want to know what the police department is doing with that, besides shooting black men in the back.
But that's what Trump said. Trump said the police clearly aren't doing their job there. And so somebody, the mayor or somebody or the governor needs to ask for federal help to go into Chicago. I didn't have no problem with that.
I think it depends on what that looks like. If he's talking about law and order, how black folks have traditionally experienced law and order in this country, I think that's dangerous. I think that's
a lot more discouraging for kids, and I think it makes things even worse.
So what do you do then? Like this is my problem.
I think they need to rebuild certain neighborhoods in Detroit and make a lot more programs for kids.
I thought you were talking about Chicago.
That's what she meant.
That's Chicago. Yeah, I think they need to rebuild a lot of those neighborhoods because I've been to Chicago and I've been to certain neighborhoods where I look around and I'm like, this looks awful. Imagine how that feels as a kid growing up in Chicago and your neighborhood looks crazy and they don't care about it and they don't do anything.
And there's no programs. They got to get the gangbangers off the street. They got to get the guns off the street. Even if they build it,
part of that is also trying to figure out what can these kids be doing besides being out in the street and gangbanging.
But part of this is too, we continue to deal with the symptoms and not the root cause of these things. The root cause of these things is still slavery, oppression, prejudice, discrimination, economic apartheid in this country. And until we deal with the root cause of that, what's causing violence in Chicago is a lack of opportunity. What's causing violence in Chicago is the fact that we have traditionally been disenfranchised. They're not putting enough money into our schools. Rahm Emanuel is shutting down public schools just within the last couple of years. All of those things are problematic and have everything to do with how folks are crying out. That's anger. That's frustration. That is desperation. And so sending in the federal or the National Guard, sending in, the federal government doesn't necessarily solve for that. And so I think we need to have some conversations. And I'm not just talking about family talk because it's far beyond that. It is a national crisis now to say what actually solves a problem like this. We haven't dealt with one like this.
So what does? Because when you say the root causes, we know the root causes. We've known the root causes for years. What are going to be the solutions?
But we know that. We are dealing with a community of people, at least, again, 46 million of them, who won't even acknowledge that that's fact, who are just telling us that we need to get over it. And when you've experienced that, even we didn't even talk about the mass incarceration piece. When you have been told that you need to get over it and you don't have the means to get over it, you literally don't have the economic means to get over it. You don't have any viable solutions. That doesn't work.
So when they acknowledge it, then what?
I think you have to provide some, you really do have to provide some educational alternatives.
Like even if they acknowledge it, then what?
I think that it results in strategic economic development opportunities. You have to deal with folks' self-esteem and self-worth and value.
Don't that come from us, though?
Partially.
A lot of us should lift each other up.
But how are we going to say, oh, you matter, and I care about you, and you're going to make it, but I still don't equip you with the tools that you need to make it? Like, it's not
opportunities. Give people businesses, jobs, more advantages. Give them after-school programs. Give them better education. Better role models.
The best thing I think is going to come out of a Trump presidency is the fact that I think that we're going to start learning how to empower each other more. I think it's up to us to lift each other up. I think it's enough of us in the community who are making money, who are making moves. Angela and Envy, y'all got a business y'all just opened that y'all can provide jobs for people in the community. I think we have to start relying on each other. 'Cause I think we leaned a little bit too much on government the past 8 years, thinking Barack Obama was going to say
Well, I
this.
tell you, it did make me think not only just opening that business, but I already have other things that I'm planning to do. And everybody we have employed are people that live in our community. So, and it's a juice bar. It's great for the community. It's educational. It looks beautiful. People come in there, they hang out. There's free Wi-Fi. The TV's in there. They're learning about being healthier. So that was something to me that was a goal. And I had some more things, but it did, even with this whole Donald Trump thing, it's like, all right, I got to figure out some things that I could do.
And I want to get back to the point you just raised about us relying on the federal government a little bit too much. I think that that's also a myth that we kind of have to dispel. We disproportionately lean on government resources because we don't have enough. Mm-hmm. But we are not outnumbering white folks.
Oh, no, white people are on welfare more than anybody.
And they call it something different. It'll be like, oh, no, those are my SNAP benefits. It's not food stamps. They'll say it's something different. I think that we have to be honest about where we are, but know that, we can overcome it, but we do have to get a lot more strategic. And I hope that is the one thing that comes out of this presidency, too, that we know that the power is in our hands, and we are way more powerful if we're united. One of the things that I was saying over and over again around the time that Bernie Sanders was saying his average donation was $27. Mm-hmm. Well, if there's almost 50 million black people in this country and we all gave $20 to something just one time, we have more money than the size of the New York economy. Right. That's only $20. Imagine what we could do if we really pulled real resources together.
By the way, Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, and Minister Farrakhan been saying that for decades.
A long time.
Like literal decades.
Right.
Well, we appreciate you for joining us.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me.
We want to hear more from Angela Rye.
Absolutely.
Whenever you can
Happy
come
to
on the
do
Breakfast Club, come. Let's talk some politics. Let's amplify your voice.
And when we need some help, we definitely going to call you because I'm sure there's going to be a lot going on with Donald Trump. So
you going to call me, have me on Lifeline?
Yeah, Lifeline, absolutely.
We got to amplify Angela's voice because CNN going to get tired of this wokeness in a minute now.
We're not hoping for that.
You, Bakari,
yes.
Nina Turner, Simone, they were like, let's stop bringing these educated black people on and get Lil Wayne on.
You think that Donald Trump considers you like an enemy? Because he has his
I don't
list of enemies.
think Donald Trump is checking for me. Okay. At least not yet.
All right.
He's petty.
He's petty as
He
hell.
probably do
Yeah.
both.
Petty AF.
It's Miss Angela Rye. It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning.
The Breakfast Club. Every weekday morning. Tune in